Let's start off with a 1-minute highlight reel of this video so that you know I'm not going to bore you for over an hour. What does that student want to do? And can your plant provide that? No one is going to say, I want to make plastic cups, or I want to make trash bags. If this is a group effort, there's going to be disagreement on this one. And if there's disagreement, it's going to cause problems. People who work their butts off, that's who you want. It's Play-Doh that hasn't been dropped on the floor with hair in it. I don't know is a great answer. But you know that life hits you pretty hard. And sometimes corporate America is where you need to be. You start having kids and stuff, your business plans are gone. Dream all you want, man, but life hits pretty hard. When you're dealing with BSMEs, not BSMETs, but BSMEs, half of them think that their whole job, that all of engineering is designing stuff. That's literally what these schools are letting their graduates leave with. They think that the rest of their life will be designing stuff on a computer. A lot of these kids are just hunting for experience, and they're not going to leave their experience with you. You have to avoid that at all costs. At all costs. And it might take a little bit of HR backflipping, but you have to avoid it at all costs. This is a big pitfall. The GPA stuff, you can't allow the folks in HR talent acquisition to get caught up on that too heavily. It didn't feel like leftovers. It didn't hurt anybody's feelings. You can leave the hiring managers alone. Just leave them alone for the most part, outside of interviewing. This detail might be something that people think is needed way ahead of time, but it's not. Just let the hiring managers breathe, and they'll turn it in last minute probably, but as long as they have it, it's fine. The ones that the hiring manager said, yes, I want to hire this person, and you don't make some type of red carpet before an offer, your competitors will. My name's Tim. I'm going to show you how you and your company can gain a competitive edge in the hiring space by having people fully trained on day one of their full-time hire. It sounds a little too good to be true. However, I've already done this, and single-handedly as the talent acquisition lead of an $8 billion a year in revenue automotive OEM based out of Indiana. And I'm simply going to show you what I did. I'm not going to spend much time with an intro. I do YouTube for crypto as well, so I'm not shy on camera. So anybody tuning in who is from an HR perspective, I want you to set your dials to this guy you're listening to is more of an operations-minded person, and a lot of this information will be tailored towards more of operational executives, perhaps referring to HR at times, and what I found as areas of opportunity. It's just that spin. That's just my angle. And so be prepared for that angle so you don't catch it, you don't catch it by surprise if you're an HR professional. Operations executives, this is definitely tailored towards you. When I edited this video, I realized that many of my references about HR or any interdepartmental struggle that companies have, it sounded like I was referring to my in-house experience. But unless I specifically state this was my experience, I'm mostly referring to the several hundred manufacturing clients that I had over about a 10-year period, listening to their interdepartmental struggles, as opposed to referring to the company I worked for in-house. I still drive a Subaru that was built at the plant while I work there. I love it, and I'm probably going to get another one. If you take this idea and use it because it's free information, then go ahead. So you might ask, why am I going to show you how to do this and how I did it? Literally step by step. I think it's 25-page presentation. Why am I going to do this? Because first off, even if I show you all the things I did, you're probably still not going to be able to do it at your company. Corporate America it has a little bit too many group huddles, and I think that I can give this information away for free, and it still wouldn't be, it's going to be very hard to do without outside services. But if you think that you can take this and just rock and roll, do it. It's free information, and that's the gamble I'm taking here. So anyway, this is pulled up straight up from my LinkedIn profile right here. If you want to see a little bit really quickly about who I am, and I'm going to try to keep this as organic as possible. I didn't even take off. It says open to work, as you can see here, right? And I do crypto YouTubing, and I have a community there. Worked a long time in agency recruiting and manufacturing, particular to plastic extrusion and plastic packaging. And then I worked at the automotive OEM. You can go ahead and check out my profile, see the stats, the things that I've put up there. I even have the job description from what I'm going to talk about. I didn't realize that was on there. So go ahead and check out my LinkedIn. I honestly didn't realize that it was on there. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep this as organic as possible to see a little bit more about a few things that I've published. Nothing here is super secretive from the company I worked at or anything. I have watered this down for LinkedIn years ago, but I've published quite a bit of stuff, and I've been around the block a little bit. Even if 10 years doesn't sound like a lot to you, what I find is in corporate America, the talent acquisition and recruiting roles are treated as entry-level positions, and so this is not entry-level information that I'm about ready to give out for free. So with no further ado, I guess we can get started here. Let's call this program Day 1. But it's fully trained on day 1. It is an internship program mentality, but this is for any manufacturer or a business model that could retailer this outside of manufacturing if you're not from that industry. This is for any company having salaried hiring problems, whether it's due to location-based because you are in Paducah, Kentucky, away like 180 miles away from the next civilization, or you're based out of Austin and a newer, sexier type of manufacturing came into town called Tesla and not only sucked away a bunch of the hourly talent, which this is not for hourly talent, but also salary talent went because of newer and better and greener on the other side. So there could be myriad reasons why you're having salaried hiring problems, and it can be very painful, but this is, I'm telling you, if you get through this and take this free information, it could be totally self-sustaining, self-driving. I guess I mentioned Tesla, so that would be a good pun, but it's self-fueling type of program. And you'll see why by the end. I'm telling you, I did it for a very large company. You can do it too. If I did it by myself, all I had to do was wake up a lot earlier. So I would get to work at 7 a.m. and I would be on the phone calling these students by 7:30 a.m. So it did take a lot more work on my part, and I worked a lot of hours to do it, or extra hours on top of what I was working. But if you are more fully staffed than what I had going on for this, I was the only salaried hiring person for a plant with 900 salaried people and 7,000 total folks. 6,500 direct hire and I think 500 contractors. But anyway, if I could do it, your team could probably be able to do this. And again, I'm going to tell you my pitfalls here. The next slide here. What you're going to need to figure out how to pay these people, first off. So this is not some free type of internship where it's cost free and you get people trained on day 1. You're going to have to pay them kind of like a contractor, and that covers, as you'll see later, housing costs and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't have a current contract firm that helps you out and helps staff you, you're going to have to go find one. That would be a little bit of legwork. I was very blessed with having a ultra high volume one already at my disposal. I did not have to jump that hurdle. You might. So if that is a hurdle for you, you're going to have to check that out first before you get all excited about this. You're going to need buy-in from department head. A lot of the, not a lot, I would say a few of them at the first thought of this, they thought this was going to be like babysitting until I had to get buy-in from all the hiring managers. It might have been up to 12 departments at that place, but it was not as challenging as I thought it was going to be. And the, 2 or 3 managers that gave a little kickback at first, and once I explained it, what it was going to do for them in the end, just like, you're going to have people sit in their desk on day 1 ready to work, like, because you've already trained them, or your best number, your number 1, the person under your assistant manager, whoever, has already trained this person for over a year. Like, you've never had somebody sit down on day 1 being fully trained, right? On all your systems. Even if the person can do the work, they probably don't know your systems exactly, or they don't know the people or how the departments work together. Like fully trained, it doesn't happen, right? And so after that, I did get buy-in, and I think I had to wake up. I had to get to work a lot earlier and probably stayed an hour later. So if you need to dish this off on somebody, which you're probably going to have to do, because I'm tailoring this towards manufacturing operations executives, perhaps even sales executives, really, finance side, operations side, maybe even engineering side. But this is not tailored towards HR, okay? The last little deal here is you're going to have a strategy for handing this off from HR and talent acquisition to the hiring team, and we'll cover that. It's near the end here. There we go. I'm out of the way now. You're going to have to talk with your department leaders first off. Before you make job description, anything. department leaders, get a game plan. You need to scope out what everybody's thinking, even before getting buy-in. Don't have anybody charge in and say, this is what we're doing. The idea of inception here, you need to plant the seed and let it grow throughout the several days or weeks. In general, you might tally up who would like interns and who would not like interns, typically, and start getting a rough head count. And so what you're going to find here is that after you start conducting this, the managers who say no thanks, people are going to start talking and they're going to want it too. All right. So the number's probably going to grow. That happened with me and I didn't expect it. So just please realize that's probably what's going to happen, especially if this is conducted correctly. All right. I made myself big just to make that point here. Sorry. And then if you feel that at any point, like this department could really use, this, but the hiring manager they don't want to babysit, right? Like they're not a good coach, not a good trainer. They don't want any of it. And then some questions, you might ask to probe to try to get that person a little to buy into the idea is, do you have any looming retirements? Or ask, well, do you remember the last time you made a hire? Even if you don't have an opening right now, how hard was it the last time you did? Right. And then tie in the idea of, hey, such and such just built a plant, or hey, this is the current challenge that we have. So if you were to have an opening, this is the pain that we would face. And so those would be probing questions or ways to get the ideas flowing to get that hiring manager on board, especially if you feel that is the department that really needs it the most and you're getting kicked back. So I'm giving you some ideas there. You can obviously handle that yourself. One idea to keep in mind is, okay, so here's where the HR stuff comes into play. Like, that's not that angle, all right? You need the hiring managers for each department to feel that this is their stuff. They need the autonomy, they need to feel the power, and they need to feel that, lack of a better term, that HR is not on their back. And that, like, they need the freedom. You need to at least have the perceived freedom, or it won't work. It won't work. And so sometimes there's a power struggle among departments, or, I don't really know what is going on at your company, but you're going to have to feel that out. And one way to overcome any of those types of interdepartmental, struggles there is almost like the 10th Amendment type of deal in the U.S. is each state, has some level of autonomy. You need that 10th Amendment type of idea. Does that make sense? All right. And so those are just ideas starting off. I haven't really done step one, but these are ideas that you really need to start off. All right. Now you have buy-in, you have a rough head count on who wants what, how many people does each department want. And HR has done their a lot of legwork, perhaps to make sure the budget is there for this. But the true north is very important. There's absolutely no reason to let a department do this if they can't maintain true north. And here's what it means. And in a nutshell, you just need to treat the interns as if they are your new hire, period. Like, in a nutshell, that is it. I did not come up with that myself. That was a much more experienced, wiser individual from the plant who, and I think it was paint department in automotive, but he came up with this, and it was very necessary. And I missed this personally, but we caught it very, very early as a team effort. So the whole idea is some hiring managers might feel it's babysitting, or that is just the natural approach, right? So the part of the buy-in process is you have to treat them like new hires, period. And you have to, even if they're not planning on keeping this person afterward, the whole idea is you are interacting with that person's game plan, even though they're coming in and out intermittently, maybe working 3-hour days, I think during summertime, they should be able to work 8 to 10 hour days, because this is going to be a summer internship program that could go into the school year as well. But it's still a little bit more intermittent than normal, right? Because, dogs get sick or excuses happen and flat tires happen, but they're going to show up a little bit later, for example, right? So, but in light of that, that's where the babysitting mentality comes. Like, I don't want to deal with this, but you have to stick to that true north. And not just you, but each person each individual hiring manager in each department. And the next thing, so C, the last thing down here, good thing I wrote that down, I almost forgot, is one part of the buy-in that is absolutely necessary is that hiring manager must select a strong number one, kind of like, in Star Trek. Number one, it's the first officer. You need a first officer for each department, because that hiring manager, he or she might think that they can do it themselves, but manufacturing fires get thrown around. You got to go firefight all the time, and then pulled into meetings, and then you get sick, and then hiring manager has to do this, and you have to have a number one, and perhaps even a number two. Like, that is absolutely necessary. And that is another thing that I self-discovered as I was just doing. So I just bulldozed through this and figured stuff out as I went along, but hopefully you won't have to with this information shown to you. Okay, now that you've got a little bit of buy-in, you got a rough idea on what's going on. Still don't need a job description or anything. Just, we're taking it easy here, one step at a time. Each department, this is a mental concept, I guess, something to keep in mind. Which departments are going to be the most specialized, if any? If your plant, is not that big and you only have 110, maybe 110 people total, right? And only 8 salaried folks, you might have to scale this down a little bit, but it still applies to anything. There might be a couple departments where it's super specific stuff, and there might not be a college in town that has that. Maybe, like, for example, welding. That's the one that or maybe even robotics. But welding is hyper specialized as a trade, and getting an actual 4-year degree with it, for example. So you're going to have to scout, first off, is there any department like that? And if so, we can address that a little later. I'll actually give you exact examples of the welding, the things that I targeted. And if you have welding at your place, well, then you can steal what I did. Like, you'll literally get school names, contacts, and numbers and everything in this presentation. I'm going to show it all to you. All right. And then start thinking about what colleges are around, which ones are local-ish, which ones are regional, and probably keep it with that. You don't want to go too far. And then all you need really is a basic Excel doc, which you're going to see mine, and you'll see that I suck at Excel. Like, it's not very fancy, but it worked. It worked fabulously. And but this was one of the hardest parts for me. All right. But once I got this list done, and we're going to go over how to do it, so it's not hard for you, but or your team. But finding the right contact was hard. So I'm in Indiana. I just listed, a bunch of people, right? And I think that's legible, right? So this is public information. So I'm not giving people's phone numbers out from resumes or anything. This is on like a public website, right? Purdue and Rose-Hulman, IUPUI, and all that stuff. And the contacts are probably mostly different by now. So you can't just start calling people. But this is how I did it. I came up with a bunch of different department leads. And then after I started making contact, I made for darn sure to label who is my main contact. But it took a long time to get to that point. It took a while. And this is only one page of many. All right, and then for the welding, I did the same type of deal, and I labeled, can you see up the top left where my cursor is, main contact, right? I even got her cell phone. I think that's her, yeah. I even got her cell phone number. And again, this is, maybe that's not public information. I might have to edit that out. But anyway, I'm going to have to blur that out, unfortunately. So that was not on the public website. So assuming that cell phone number and any others previously are bleeped out there, blurred out, then this is this general idea, just a raw Excel list, and try to figure out who the main contact is. What I did, and it worked pretty well once I figured out what to do, is I got, similar to in my crypto line of work, I always come up with the 3 most likely scenarios, and I don't really guess which one will happen, right? I just identify what are the 3 most likely things to happen here. And that's what you want to do when you're trying to select essentially whom to contact. A good thing to try is get a hold of or write down, so don't start contacting people yet, but the head of the department, you can just read the list here. But among these, so the top department admin, that typically was the most helpful person. There were a few at the smaller colleges. I can't remember which one, but it was one specific to supply chain, and they had a whole school within the university of supply chain. The professors did it themselves. Like, they even printed out the job description and everything, and with directions on how to apply, and they hand delivered it to students, like had them pick it up on their way out, like literally. But it's not always the admin, but the larger the university, the more likely it will be the admin. But don't guess, just email them all in one swoop. Carbon copy or probably not BCC, but get everybody on one email, and at the end say, could you please get me to the correct person? And they're typically more than willing to do that. Like, way more than willing to do that. All right, so still continuing with step 3, I'm changing the color schematics here a little bit so it's not so boring for you. Now, this is still, we don't need a job description, but we're getting a lot closer. All right, this first contact, again, if you do it before you're ready for the program, I sure as heck did. You don't have to have, this step doesn't have to happen after you have everything like a smooth oiled wheel. They're not going to know the difference. All you want to do is identify who the right person is and then establish your intent. And then they're so busy anyway that if you don't have a job description ready for 2 weeks, just let them know, hey, I'll send it to you in a week or 2. They won't care. They're already busy, right? So that is the main, so don't hesitate to start going and doing before you have this all planned out, at least this part. That's one area of opportunity that I always kind of observed from a corporate America standpoint. A lot of things always have to be totally planned out, but man, sometimes you just got to go. Man, so hopefully I'm going to let you know during this which parts you can go, and which parts you have to get this right before you begin, such as getting the buy-in and the true north. Those are things that they're absolute must before anything happens. And having the payment program or a firm, a contracting agency who can provide you with very low fees on top of what you're already paying these students or plan to pay them. How did you do the job description? I know I hired for a bunch of departments, but what I did was, I think the job description that is on my LinkedIn, that was specifically for welding, I think, or robotics and welding. All right, that wasn't the full-on one. So I actually made this, so since this program that I did was so successful, I offshot it specific to about 4 or 5 departments that it was just impossible to hire for, especially since at that time there were equity issues. This was the only way to do it. And because equity issues were going to take like 2 years to figure it out, and it was a highly specialized, robotics and welding, very highly specialized, and I couldn't get people to move, and it just, I ran into equity issues. So if you go check that out, that is not in line with what you're going to see here, but it is similar. So I had a one fell swoop job description for the whole shebang for all departments, and at the end I simply just put, applying to this would be beneficial for young professionals looking to gain experience in, and then bullet point in engineering, in supply chain and logistics, right? Most kids don't know anything about procurement and buying, right? I probably didn't put that. You might not either, because I don't think there's a school for that. That's mostly the kids who say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. And that's a great answer that you'll see later. Like, I don't know is a great answer to some of the questions that your talent acquisition or HR folks are going to ask them as they're screening. But you just list the departments that you're essentially, that the hiring manager said yes. So from step 1, you're getting the head count. Well, that's the bullet point list. So it's just a one fell swoop. Here's the internship program. Here's how much we pay, all that kind of stuff. And you don't have to make multiple. You just have one deal. However, it might be beneficial to separate them if you want them going into other buckets. But typically you just look at the degree and you just separate them yourself. That's all. It didn't take hardly any time at all. It was probably better to do it that way, a one fell swoop, because it's so easy to sort because you can see the degree. And then if somebody has a BSME but wants to do something totally, was applying for something else, they could just tell you on the phone. It's really not that big of a deal. And it causes more headache to try to separate everything out. That, at least from my experience, it did. All right. And so that was my kind of risk reward analysis. And I think I made the right choice, even in hindsight, to do one fell swoop. Try to attract those BSMETs, the technology majors. I know that you might scoff at that. I've heard curse words as a recruiter coming to me, not from me, but I've received curse words, not directly toward me though, but they said it on the phone, about the difference between BSMEs and BSMETs. And they didn't want to see T at the end, right? If that's your thought, then I mean, I'm not going to try to compel you otherwise, but if you're open to the idea, and I'm telling you, depending on how large your company is, you're going to have hiring managers who are going to fight you on that. I don't know how you're going to deal with it, but the only thing I can say is in manufacturing, through my personal experience, not just, I'm talking like interviewing hundreds of kids, hundreds, and then over the 20 months, thousands of salaried people. The BSMETs were awesome for manufacturing. And so if a hiring manager fights it, like maybe cut a deal. For example, okay, well, how about this? How about during the interview process, if I find BSMETs, could you please still interview them, for example, but can we do it in an experiment fashion? Because I'm betting you might like them better than the BSMEs, right? It's possible. I think there's a strong chance, or try to cut a deal where they're saving face. You're not forcing them. And, you keep the door open like, I'm probably wrong, but could you, you might want to do it just in case, right? I don't know how you're going to cut that deal, but man, if you have people fighting on you, it'd be such a waste not to consider them. And that is something I did not know. I learned that at that job. I did not anticipate that at all. I was more from the school of thought that, I was told by people, ooh, the T's and this, they don't know math and all that. No, who cares? BSMEs don't know hands-on stuff. I mean, they don't know how to get stuff done in the real world. They're on a piece of paper and a computer, right? And the METs, the technology folks, are hands-on. So, and they know how to produce. Production. All right. Once you make that job description, then you go back to your main contact, get it in front of them, obviously. But here's what's not obvious. You're going to have to feel out who's going to do what, who's going to take on what to get this in front of all the students. So, for example, it's possible that it's a big university and it's a 200-person class, right? I mean, that's a lot of printing. They might not want to deal with it. But you don't know the class sizes until they tell you, right? Now, for me, I actually visited some of these places and I saw the class sizes. They were fairly intimate, 30-something kids at the junior and senior level. I didn't do much freshman type of stuff, right? And we'll get to that part later. No freshmen for this, but just too high a risk for the amount of reward that is too far out. Anyway, but on the job description, it needs to have something on there showing them how to apply electronically. Because this might be printed out and handed to people. They need to know how to make it electronically, right? But you need to fill out with your main contact, how can I get this in front of all the students? Can I have this printed out and mailed to you? And they'll probably say, no, I'll do that myself. These colleges were so much more willing to do stuff than I ever imagined. I definitely underestimated the thrill. I thought they were going to be coming from the mindset of, oh, we get these calls all the time and it's always a waste. To me, it felt that even large universities with 40,000 plus students, right? It seemed like it was rare for them, and they were just just tickled with the idea. So they were almost willing to bend over backwards, for the lack of a better term, to get this done, to expose their students to the opportunity. And I think I wrote that down here at the bottom. Yeah, I definitely underestimated the willingness of these folks. And so at multiple points, they just said, yep, they said, oh, I already printed it out and the kids already all got it. Like, they all took it out. I was like, wow. So when I emailed them, before even having this follow-up conversation with them, some of them already did it. But you need to establish who's going to do what, because you need the traffic. You need eyeball traffic to make people aware, as many as possible, because you need a funnel, right? You need a big top of the funnel. And then you're going to be very selective at the end. You have to get heavy traffic. So it's imperative to establish who will do what to do that. Okay, still step 4 continued. It's a long step. Okay, something that your HR might battle you with, but I'm telling you, you need the money right on there. You need to know how much you're going to pay these kids, and they need to know how much you're planning on paying them if they're hired. I don't know state by state laws. Again, that's not my forte. I'm more of the operations minded person. This is what we're doing, and HR, it's your plan. Like, how you figure this out, right? From a legal perspective or whatever, tell you how important it is. You're just not going to get traffic if it's not visible. And these rates might seem pretty high, but I'll go over why a little bit later. Why, I mean, you need to pay them pretty well, because it's going to save you so much more money later. I'm telling you, it's going to save you so much more money later, so much more. And then one big thing that I didn't think of, this was actually my boss's at the time idea, is I wouldn't have thought of this. But so this was, his knowledge of HR coming into here. But don't state anywhere, don't make any promise or any perceived notion that it is you get hired after you complete the internship. And honestly, it'd be better to specifically state it. This is not an intern to hire program. Even though that is your intent, it cannot be written in there. It was not obvious. Pipeline strategy. So this is one of the reasons why I think that I could give this information away for free, and it's still going to be pretty hard to do, especially if it goes in the hands of HR, talent acquisition. Like I said earlier, talent acquisition is often treated as an entry-level position. This is not entry-level work, and this is the part where it's not entry-level. This takes some skill. What I'm about to go over here, and it won't work. There's no reason to even try this if this can't be overcome. All right, but this is my forte, so this is where I just rock and rolled, just totally. And so the whole idea here is, I guess, and not just HR, any salaried person at a company in corporate America who is a little separated from operations and seeing like the flow of material and the flow of money. Like the farther you are from that, the more natural, the disconnect, if I could point the right direction, is going to be. And that disconnect, what it will do if you have entry-level people in HR handling this is they're going to go for headcount and warm bodies. Like, the highest GPA and, all this kind of stuff. And they have the most internships, right? Like, yeah, okay, well, we'll go over that a little later. That's not the way you want to do it. And I'm going to hopefully prove it to you for this. But this is like this idea, what I'm getting ready to go over, this is how it will all fail if it's not executed properly. So in, corporate America, collecting a paycheck as opposed to hustling and grinding yourself, that is the disconnect I'm talking about. And that would result in folks, the best GPA, that type of mentality will fill chairs, but it won't allow your hiring managers to be able to hire from this. You need to make a lot of hires from this program, right? So with that, the skills matrix, which we're going to go over next, I'll have figures and, drawings and all that stuff here. Flight risk has to be one of the main things. Is this person going to stay? I mean, what's the probability of this person living in this city, essentially, right? If it's next to zero, then, from an HR perspective, I don't know how you're going to get around that. But you need it on the skills matrix, because for any other job, if somebody needs to be there physically and it's not remote, you can't talk to somebody who can't move, right? It's part of the job description. And so you need to treat it that way too. But HR might fight you on that. And, but if they fight it, it's not going to work. It just won't work. So let's go over this, what pretty much it needs to be done here. Okay, so here is this exact order of what is important, like the weighted skills matrix. Does your plant offer, or company offer, what the student simply wants? What does this person want to do? Do they want to build cars? Great. Those are the people I look for the most. I got car geeks. And some of them, I found Subaru geeks. And they were fantastic. Like, now, will you have that luxury? No. Like, for example, in plastic manufacturing, which is a great business. It's a fantastic operation. But no one is going to say, I want to make plastic cups, or I want to make trash bags, right? Some people might say, I want to cut metal and make tool and die. You might get that, but outside of that, there's not going to be a whole lot from an injection molding and dealing with barrels and screws for extrusion and all the machine building side of things. But from an operation standpoint, number one might be a challenge. So you might have to get, especially if you have an entry-level person handling this or entry-level people, this is going to be a tough one. They're going to need to know. It's going to be tough. I had 10 years of experience and having to grind. I had to get this right or I couldn't feed myself, right? And so the people that are handling this have never had that experience plus 10 years of it and was successful at it. And it's going to be really hard. But in the screening process, these are essentially how you screen. How you're screening kids. GPA is last. It is last. It is like the tiebreaker. I'm telling you. Now, you might have a threshold, like 2.5 and under. Okay, probably don't call those people, right? But, I mean, 2.8, as we're going to, 2.8 is, that might have been our best hire, to be honest with you. And I think that person's still there. But what does that student want to do? And can your plant provide that? That's the first most important thing. And if you have a skills matrix, that is out of 10. And then this next question, number 2, would only be out of 7 or something. And then you add up the points at the end. And GPA is out of it's maybe 3 points total, or I guess 4. Out of a GPA of 4 or 4.25 or whatever the heck the schools are doing now to make people feel better about themselves with higher GPAs. But just at a scale out of 4, 4.0 roughly is a 4 out of 4, right? But you can't get 10 points for a 4.0 GPA, but you can get 10 points for answering a question, an open-ended blind question during the screening process. What do you want to do? And if the student says something that you can provide, boom, 10 out of 10. Or if it's halfway there, boom, 5 out of 10. Right? Number 2, this is where HR it's gonna be difficult. No one asked me questions, so I just knew who to select. But if this is a group effort, there's going to be disagreement on this one. And if there's disagreement, it's going to cause problems. But because there's literally there's no reason to bring people in and spend your time and effort, or your hiring manager's time and their employees' time and effort training these people when they're just going to hop, skip, and jump back to Idaho to work on a farm or whatever with the bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And there are a lot of smart, educated farmers, I'm telling you, a ton. I live in Indiana, I would know. So, and you can simply probe that with, what are your plans after graduation? Sorry for my double preposition in that one. Don't criticize too much. All right, and then number 3 is previous. So a lot of people go, previous, they don't have any internships. Who cares? If they worked at Wendy's to pay bills, that's even better than an internship. I'm telling you, the hard-working stuff, people who work their butts off, that's who you want. I mean, it's just who you want, period. GPA's last. I can't spin it any other way. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to convince you. If you put it in this order, a skills matrix, this is how you optimize things to make it as successful as a program as possible. Okay. Addressing the first thing, what does a student want and do we have it? All right. So when you're dealing with BSMEs, not BSMETs, but BSMEs, half of them think that their whole job, that all of engineering is designing stuff. That's literally what these schools are letting their graduates leave with. They think that the rest of their life will be designing stuff on a computer. Not all of them, but it is close to half. Now, if you think somebody's studly and that's still their answer, try to probe a little bit more, maybe. But if there's nothing else impressive, you don't want somebody who wants to sit down and design, unless you're hiring for the R&D side of things, right? Maybe that would be a good answer. Then that would flip to green. But in operations, even in engineering, which is operations, it makes operations possible, essentially, it just doesn't work. The answer, I don't know, is a great answer. It's a fantastic answer because they're a clean slate. It's like white, clean paper that you can draw on and you can mold, it's Play-Doh that hasn't been dropped on the floor with hair in it. I don't know is a great answer. So and that would be something that, more assumingly entry-level people handling this, the screening for this, you wouldn't know. But I don't know is a fantastic answer. I cannot stress that enough. Another good answer is, I don't know, but I just want to manage people. maybe even a business degree or a finance degree or an engineering degree, but their passion's for management. They want to be an engineering manager one day. They don't know in what, they don't know in what field, they don't even know if they want to be in manufacturing. They don't even know that's where their career might take them. They want to manage people. It's a great answer. It's similar to I don't know. And then some answers I got, some really good candidates, they wanted to be a business owner later on. Hence, hardworking is like the number 2 most important thing. And then I would probe, well, how soon do you want to do it? Hopefully they would have that answer prepped. And I'd say, in 1 year. Right? I want to work for 1 year, then quit and make my own business. Now, if somebody says that, obviously that's probably not somebody you want to go after, but that is a common answer, and I wouldn't shy from it because most kids with that business perspective, they know it's going to take a while, but that life hits you pretty hard. And sometimes corporate America is where you need to be. You start having kids and stuff, like your business plans are gone. Like dream all you want, man, but life hits pretty hard. So that's not a bad answer, and that's not a disqualifier at all. It's a great answer, I think. The best answer, okay, and again, as you can see right above me here, not all plants and manufacturing companies will have this luxury, but I want to build cars. Okay, there you go. That is the best answer for the number 1 thing. What does the student want, and do we have it? I want to build cars. We build cars. 10 out of 10, right? Okay, so moving on. I got rid of the double preposition here. What are your plans after you graduate? There's the Idaho farm. Okay, maybe that's why I came up with that. Move back to Idaho and work on a farm. So flight risk. So this is number 2, flight risk. Are they going to stay in town, essentially? Or they just want an intern. So there's a bunch of kids. It might even be close to half. They already know what they're going to do, and it's not what you're doing. It's not what your company does. And they have no filter. They'll just say, I want to build robots over in Japan, right? Or something like that. I'm like, well, sorry, man, we don't build, don't say it, but I mean, we don't build robots, so you're not a candidate, right? But again, I can't stress this enough. The people who you might have handling this, they're not going to know that, especially if they have a high GPA and a lot of internships. A lot of these kids are just hunting for experience, and they're not going to leave their experience with you. You have to avoid that at all costs. At all costs. And it might take a little bit of HR backflipping, but you have to avoid it at all costs. Again, I don't know is a great answer, right? What are your plans after you graduate? And then, again, not all companies are going to have the luxury of receiving the last, best answer, the golden one here. But I want to work at Subaru, or I want to work at, Ford. I want to work at Tesla. I want to work at SpaceX. Whatever the case is, that is the best answer. And when they say that, they mean it. The people were serious about it. And when they came to interview, they knew more about cars than I did. And I don't know much about cars, but I know a lot more about it now. But they knew so much, and they weren't fibbing. They weren't telling me what I wanted to hear. And in fact, most people had no filter, and they would tell me what I didn't want to hear, as if I was just wanting to fill chairs. Like, yeah, we'll pay you this for nothing in return, or guaranteed nothing in return, right? No way. But that's not obvious to entry-level talent acquisition or HR folks, okay? Or perhaps folks on that side of the business in general, because there is a little bit of separation from the bottom line of the business. Probably not at HR manager level and up, but there's just a natural disconnect, right? And again, that's from IT, that's from anywhere. Okay. And those are from an executive standpoint, things, looking down at this roll out, those are the pitfalls, right? So if I'm speaking towards you, for example, and you're in HR, it's like, oh man, he's really digging in hard. Well, because I'm gearing this towards potential pitfalls, and this is simply my perspective. And I had a lot of pitfalls myself, and we're going to cover them here too. So I hit on myself as well, so don't worry. I can make fun of you, I can make fun of myself even harder, I promise. All right. Number 3 and 4. So this is still like the skills matrix, how to qualify people and pre-screen people. And this is what I was doing at 7:30 in the morning. These are the 4 things I was going over. That's it. That is it. Even before the hiring managers knew who I was going to select. And we'll go over that here in a minute as well. So previous jobs or internships, I can't stress enough. Jobs are just as valuable as internships, I'm telling you. And some of them might not put it on. So if somebody has no work experience, please add, but the GPA's high, the degree's right, they're local, they grew up there, right? They went to a local high school. Ask them, because they might not put it on the resume. Did you work summer jobs? or odd jobs? Tell me about it. Yeah, I started a landscaping business, did it for 2 years in high school, or and I still do it, or whatever. Or we flip cars on the side. I had a couple kids say that. Yeah, I buy junk cars and I fix them up and I build the engines and I sell them. So, hey, why don't you put that on your resume, man? So ask them. Jobs are just as important, I promise. Okay, and then GPA is fourth and last. I will just summarize it like this. I'll read it out loud. The best intern I found, I think, had a 2.8, if I remember correctly. Okay, he bought junk cars, rebuilt them, not with a bunch of body damage, but engine, and he sold them. And then, in addition to doing all that, he built different propulsion engines for fun, like not even petro-based, but just I don't even know what he was talking, like magnets or something. I don't know. It's just some weird genius who didn't care about getting good grades. And he definitely got hired after that. But and he was interviewing for the engine department. Beautiful fit. He still might be there. I actually don't know. I don't remember his name, but so don't hesitate. Like, this is why GPA is like the deal breaker. Don't allow. So I don't know who you are in listening to this, if you're gonna be the person doing this yourself or handing the idea off to somebody else, but this is a big pitfall, the GPA stuff. You can't allow the folks in HR talent acquisition to get caught up on that too heavily. Yes, have a cutoff. 2.6 is pretty low. Maybe like have a cutoff at 2.75, sure, but man, a 2.8, it worked out for us. All what I said, hiring managers weren't involved. And if you do get hiring managers involved in the pre-screen process, it's simply going to open up too many doors, too many scrap fights. Or melee fights or whatever, quote unquote fights. Just the whole goal here is, as of now, the power, right, is with the talent acquisition folks. But that power is for the hiring manager benefit of it is a simple layup, or it's the set before the spike down type of deal, right? Layups for the hiring managers. Okay, and I did this all in the morning before my normal job, and sometimes I had people walking by like, "What are you doing on the phone so early?" Right? But the kids were up early, so I had to do this early. And the interview process, once they're in front, so once you've screened and you select the best 10 for a team to interview, right? You hand selected them using that skill, or not you, but your team or whoever you have handling this selects 5 or whatever. Now that is when the hiring manager gets involved. Sometimes we only did 1 or 2 interviews, 1 or 2 total, and we made offers. Okay, and we'll get to when to make offers and here actually now. Okay, so step 8: timing, orientation, and touchbacks. Just checking back with people. Very important, and it's not obvious. It is not obvious if you haven't grinded to make a living getting people to start a job that they have accepted. Because if you in corporate America, again, that I collect a paycheck, this is not going to be something they're going to want to do. But if it's going to be successful, it has to be done. So you might have 2 orientation dates. That's something I totally blundered on. I miss that. Don't miss that if you do this. You need a couple dates, because as the talent acquisition folks are talking to these students, they're going to have different graduation dates. And some of them, like, oh, we have a family, paid for thing. I need to start 2 weeks after school. So have one, or, in the middle-ish, when most kids could do it, and then have one a couple weeks later. Need 2. I'm telling you. It'll make things a lot easier. And the second one will be so much easier because it'll be a smaller amount of people, right? Okay. Now, here's when to make offers. Here's my other big mistake. I totally made a mistake here. And I missed out on a lot of great talent. One of the competitors, not automotive, but just talent competition for manufacturing talent. They did this right, and I was behind the ball because I didn't know. But if you're gonna try to do this, the offers for the internship, having them out before winter break is pretty key. Now, can you do it after? I did, and I still was pretty successful with it but I had the advantage of working for, a big fish. Like automotive OEM is like some of this top of the food chain essentially. So, but if your company, doesn't fit your description, the offers have to come out quite a bit earlier. All right. And I did not anticipate that. I did not know that. But your competitors do, and they will be making offers before winter break. All right. So as you can see here, that was my biggest blunder. Okay. And let me make myself invisible with my Harry Potter cloak real quick. So fallouts. People who accept and say, oh, but this and that happened, I can't go. Okay, that's fine. It's going to happen. Not a big deal. Life happens. Like I said, it hits you hard, right? As we know. If you don't have a way that your company can text people, all right, email doesn't cut it. Phone calls take too long. Too much phone tag. Don't even try it. These touchbacks, you need to know how to get a hold of it. Just stay in touch once a month. And sometimes it's 9 months ahead, right? The program, so I'm not trying to sell a service or anything here. I'm not trying to pitch you anything, actually. But what I personally used was what is called Ring Central. And the company I worked for didn't have it at first. And we got it, and it integrated right with my Outlook calendar. It integrated with things, just with a little bit of IT permission at a big company. They were able to do it pretty quickly. You can text people super easily. And now, with that, though, if you text, doing that, on some type of soft phone or an internet phone, VoIP phone is what I think is technically called, don't text more than one person at a time. You can copy, paste, and forward, okay, just like email. And you just literally send a message, right-click, forward, and then copy the next number and enter it in, and then hit send. But you can't text more than one at a time because these the bigger carriers, AT&T and all that kind of stuff, they will block the messages and it will be considered spam and they won't get it. So, but I also suggest, it's got to be text. That's what these kids are using. Don't be old school, because text is the way to go. But that is the pitfall that you could run into if you decide to do group text, and you won't know it. They just won't they won't know to let you know that they didn't get the text, will they, right? So that took me a little while to figure out in my manufacturing recruiting experience. I don't know how many months I went doing that, but it's when my production fell and I had to troubleshoot, and I was like, oh man, that's what's happening. And then I followed up with people, oh, I never got that text, right? So that would be a pitfall to avoid. Okay, now that's the first thing. Stay in touch via text once a month, and the talent acquisition people are hunting for what has changed. Has anything changed? Has anything changed? I will make myself big to say that. Has anything changed? You don't ask them, are you still planning on coming, right? And if you have entry-level people handling this, that might be what they say. They won't know any better, but just, has anything changed? How are things going? Has anything changed since the last time we talked? That's it. The answer, quick text. Hey, how's everything going? Has anything changed since the last time we talked? Same message 30 days later, over and over until they start. Super important, because you need to know if you need to scramble to do what we're about ready to see here. Even if you've made all offers and everything is, pipelines are full 6 months ahead of time, keep them ads open. Keep them open, up and running. Even if you're you have no idea that if you're ever going to go look at all the applicants, right? And how you're going to disposition them, if I can use HR terminology, keep them open. You're probably going to need it. And if, even if not, you're going to have those resumes for the next time, because they're probably still going to go to the same school. They'll just be 1 year older, most likely, right? Or one grade up higher, obviously 1 year older. Also, the last little trick here to manage the fallouts is the last triangle there, to label the next best. So for example, if a hiring manager only needs 2 interns, and that was a close run, tie for second, right? And you just had to make a choice. Make sure it's labeled. Put that person at the top, or number 3, backup. Label it. You don't want to string. So this is another thing that entry-level people who might handle this wouldn't know, is you do need to tell them they weren't selected. I know calling it back, you're our leftovers. Who cares? I had to do it for 2 times. They didn't care. They were so happy I called them back. And both of them accepted immediately. Leftovers, right? They didn't feel like leftovers. It didn't hurt anybody's feelings. But you also can't keep people warm for months, because these kids, they're looking for an internship, right? And you got to let them know they're not selected. But if there was a close run, you need to do those 2 things. Label it. Label the person so you could easily that person can easily be found and called if you have a fallout or somebody who flaked out for whatever reason. And then, but if they weren't, when they're not selected, you have to let them know, right? Those are the things that I can't stress enough. Very, very important to do that, because you will have fallout no matter how awesome you think you are. Okay. Now, the game plan for hiring managers. So this whole time, like this is perhaps like a few months of work, right? You're probably 100 days into this. You can leave the hiring managers alone. Just leave them alone for the most part, outside of interviewing. From an HR perspective, like I wouldn't be requiring like have an exact game plan day by day, hour by hour, what they're going to do. No, not yet. But now's the time after you start making offers and get it accepted. Now that you have the game plan, that's when you start, and you might have a couple months before their summer break. It's not summer to people at work, but whatever. There's no break for us. Around that time, so spring or something, March, April, that's when the hiring managers need to start making a kind of a bi-weekly or a weekly idea of this week they'll be doing this, right? Like first week safety training, make sure they're safe on the job, for example, right? The entire first week or entire first 2 days. And then, we're going to be with Jeremiah at the end of the week 1 in this section. Then it's going to be with Susie week 2 doing this, and they need to know who the intern or interns will be with in which section of the department doing what, roughly. I mean, they need to know this stuff, and they need to come up with a game plan, but it doesn't have to happen months ahead of time. And so that's one thing from my experience in corporate America is a lot of times just getting caught up, even though details are very important. I'm not going to try to say that. However, sometimes details can be premature, and this detail might be something that people think is needed way ahead of time, but it's not. It's not. This can be done. I mean, this can be done a month before they start, 2 weeks before they start. Just let the hiring managers breathe, and they'll turn it in last minute probably, but as long as they have it, it's fine. And again, I lean heavily towards the operations and hiring managers' favoritism. So that is my spin. I apologize for that. Okay. And I might call it a scope of work or whatever, but just let the hiring managers know, hey, by around this time, a week before they start, we need to know what you're doing. But don't let them feel harassed, because then they're going to go back to the then that's going to force back the babysitting stuff, and it's just going to implode, right? We got to you got to let the hiring managers feel that it's theirs and not feel that anybody's on their back. And that is very, very important. And I know some corporate structures that might be harder, easier said than done, but man, it's really important. Your engineering department might want to do it extreme, but and so also help those people hey, if you need to break it down to the hour, go ahead, engineers. That's the way your brain works with all the details. But I mean, for me, all I need is week by week type of deal, blocks, right? For each student coming in to work under you or your team. Here is where you also need to follow up. So touch back, right? HR or talent acquisition touches back with operations or non-HR, the other departments. This is where they also need to know who their number one is. Who is going to essentially lead this? Because it's, even if the hiring manager thinks he or she can do it his or herself, you need a number one. You need a backup person. You have to. If there isn't, because it's a small plant, I don't know. I don't know if I have a solution for that, honestly. But you're going to have to think of something. You're going to have to, what if you're out, and kids are showing up and you're just paying them $25 an hour doing this? You don't want that to happen. That stuff's expensive, right? It adds up. So you got to have a number one of some sort, even if it's a coworker from another department at the same level, like another departmental manager. You gotta have a tag team of some sort in smaller plants with a smaller salaried crew. All right. And from my personal experience, I only had 2 departments. It might have been only 8. I can't remember, but it was about a dozen. I only remember 2 instances where the number one was selected and the only response was, right? That person did not want to do it, but You got to have a good number one, and you have to finalize this before they start. This is the time where that has to happen with the scope of work. Those happen, so you can essentially hit these hiring managers both at the same time. I need this and that, the scope of work for these kids on a weekly block, and you have to have locked in your number one and have full commitment and buy-in from that person, which sometimes will take months for the hiring manager to convince that number one for a couple departments. Okay, handoff. Okay, I messed this part up a little bit too. But you don't have to. So here's what my experience was. So imagine orientation is done. It's the second day or whatever, right? Maybe even third day, because I think orientation, they kept the general safety rules type of deal and protective equipment, all that stuff. But just imagine it's all over and you have 20 kids. Like, hey, where do we go, right? And then perhaps 20 hiring managers. Well, where are they going to be? Like, everybody going like this. What? And even in the event that you know exactly. So up here, you know exactly the day and time it ends. It's 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 23rd or whatever, right? May 23rd or something. Late May or early June. It's exactly this time they will need to be picked up by somebody. But you need to tell them the exact location if you have a large plant. Not just cafeteria. No. Like the corner of the cafeteria with the Cokes. The Coke machines. Pinpoint location. You don't want any room for confusion. Because like I said earlier, it's going to be like, what? You're going to have 20 or however many kids walking around or, going out orientation. Like, where do I go? And then a bunch of hiring managers, where do I go? Or what do I, how do I do this? You need to have pinpoint location, exact times. And then C up above here is if that hiring manager who planned to go to the pinpoint location at the exact day and time. I had a couple that got pulled into something serious. I don't think it was a safety issue. Because the plant I worked at was the safest automotive manufacturer in the whole country, actually, even out of all the suppliers even. But they got pulled into something big, and I had to entertain / babysit for the rest of the day. But I essentially just said, okay, we'll pay you for the rest of the day, just go home, right? You're still on the clock until this time. And they're like, great. They didn't care. But you have to have a backup plan so you don't do that. You'll look kind of silly. I looked kind of silly, but the kids didn't care. The two that I had to do that with didn't care because they were getting paid anyway, right? But if you don't want that to happen, just realize your hiring manager also needs to have a backup plan, backup for who will pick up that person at that time if I'm pulled away. That is something I overlooked. I did not anticipate. So if you do this, don't overlook that part. And like I said in red here, this was a little harder than I expected. But here is the silver lining. When you're doing all of this pinpoint location and who does what, when and where, this program and this idea might be brand new to them, or this one instance in time. Hiring managers, they actually wanted their hands held. Okay, just give me the kids, corral them to me, I will be here, right? Like bring them to me, right? They wanted that. Okay, usually that's not the case, so don't hesitate to make this almost hand holding because they're gonna probably want it, at least through my experience, and it was multiple people. I mean, it was several department leaders and their number ones. Okay, now what to look out for? The questions during the pre-screen process. So at the top here, housing. The reason why paying a solid rate here is because you don't have to deal with really moving costs. I didn't deal with moving costs at all, and didn't have to deal with housing them. So if you have a way to house people, then you can lower the rates. You don't have to pay them so much because that's you can calculate how much that's worth, and I'm not paying you $25 an hour if I'm paying for your house too, right? For your housing. But that was our solution. We just paid them like a normal worker, like a normal contractor, even though they were students and they were untrained. But it covered the cost because most students didn't. And the students who were local, they just made out great. They made out really well. But that covers the cost. But you have to have kind of like a flat rate type of deal or a flat rate for sophomores, juniors and seniors. Just don't break it down through departments or anything. Just make it either a tiered flat rate or a flat rate for everybody. I would suggest tiered though, because it gives incentive to come back type of deal for the high performers that you choose that can come back. now, and I didn't find any obstacles with this. Like, I don't think I lost anybody because I didn't house them and I didn't pay them for moving costs. I didn't lose a single person. I think it was 33 kids. 33. 0 lost. So it's probably not that big of a deal. Even though it sounds like it is. And I didn't know how to face that at first. I didn't know what was going to happen. All right. Now, the intern to hire stuff. This is where you can get into trouble with talent acquisition who's not perfectly in line. They can't ever at any point say, oh yeah, this department's hiring all the time, right? Or something like that. That can never be communicated on paper, voice, nothing. You can't do it. Like, there has to be no way to perceive that, man, I'm going to get hired here after I complete this. They cannot think it, even if that, so there are shades of gray here. So for the students who are local, who the hiring manager said, I'm hiring that person how can he graduate sooner? Like that type of, like there were several of them. For those students, there is competition as well. Who wants to hire them, right? For a full-time position, perhaps making offers 6 months ahead of time. So this is for the seniors. Or no. Going to be seniors, right? So juniors, but go back a year. You know what I'm talking about. And you need to let them know some way that even if you can't make an offer yet, that just some knowledge that the hiring manager is excited to have that person, is excited to have that person's talent some way, somehow. I know that's in direct contrast to what I said, but if you can't identify the ones that the hiring manager said, yes, I want to hire this person, and you don't make some type of red carpet before an offer, your competitors will. I know, and it's like I said, it's black and white, and we just mushed them together. It's a shade of gray, but in general, that's only reserved. So that's specifically reserved for those where the hiring manager just knows they have to have that person. Then you can make that perception, perhaps not in writing, but you need to let that person know, again, because your competition will, and you need an edge, right? It's a tricky balance. It wasn't actually hard for me because I had mostly personal conversations with them. But I don't know who's going to be handling this for you, so that could be a little tricky. But no, nothing in writing that it's a hire program afterward. All right. Now, within the job offer, or even the job description, but job offer as well, it should state that the internship ends, in the month of August or something, no matter what. If somebody local wants to continue interning, 3 days a week for 4 hours to continue training, so now they're starting their senior year, for example, and they're local. Keep them people on, but you need to write a different offer with different terms for the time frame. And for those incoming seniors who are getting ready to start their senior year who want to stay on board, which honestly is your goal. That's why you want it to do more juniors than anything, which I think we're going to do next year. I haven't covered that yet. But you need to write a new offer letter, contract, and you need to go through that contract firm again. I know it's a pain, but you don't want one contract for the whole thing. It needs to have a specific end date. Therefore, if they stay on, you need a new contract, okay? Or a new offer. All right. And how to let your talent acquisition team know how to get, how to let go of people who won't be invited back when the kids are leaving. If they had a good time, not all of them did. I actually got feedback from all of them. Some of them didn't have the best experience, but that was outside of my control. It was a pure handoff, right? But yeah, there was a few of them out of 30. But yeah, and they weren't shy about it either. I told them, don't try to be nice. Tell me everything that could have been better. That's one thing that's not in this. I followed up with every single one of them. I think I still have it somewhere. Someone wrote me 3 and 4 pages. This could have done, and I didn't have access to the CAD programs, and I couldn't do all that stuff. Anyway, but your talent acquisition team, how to handle, not inviting people back when they say, okay, well, what about, is this going to lead to a hire? they need to know to say, we don't have any openings for this department on the horizon, something to that effect, or whatever is truthful with, but also letting them go and not selecting them to continue. And the last thing for let's say it was somebody who completed their junior year, which is now a senior, right? So even though they hadn't entered their senior year, those are the seniors that you select, right? Because other seniors are getting full-time jobs, right? The incoming seniors who interned with you in their summer after their junior year, they're getting ready to start their senior year. If the hiring manager knows that they want to make an offer, don't hesitate to make that offer early, even before winter break. Don't hesitate. Just get it done. Get it done. Especially if the budget allows for it. Like maybe you have a looming retirement 2 years out. Okay, well, they're going to have an overlap of a year. But I still wouldn't hesitate because your competitors won't. They're going to take them from you. And you will have trained them in manufacturing on your dime. So thank you. The competition would say, thank you for all the money that you spent on this person to get them safety trained and familiar with stuff buzzing around their head and noises and the chaos. And I appreciate it. Don't let that happen. People will steal them out from under you because I did it to other people a lot. All right. A ton, actually. All right. Unknown unknowns part 2. You want a middle heavy distribution. So the seniors up there are actually, they just finished their junior year. They haven't started their seat. So that's who I'm classifying as juniors. The word juniors up there is for people who just finished their sophomore year, right? Or you're talking to them as their sophomores, but you label them as juniors in your mind because they will be the junior class. Is that making sense? And the juniors need to be the biggest class because you will have, so people who've just finished their sophomore year, you're talking to them as sophomores. Those are the people you need to get the most of, especially in year 1 of this program, perhaps all years, because that is the best way to get somebody fully trained. Because you will have had a full summer with them, perhaps 2 summers, right? If you bring them back, or a local person who can stay interning throughout the year. Like local students are like the best because they can be totally fully trained on day 1, literally. And they already have had a desk the entire time, for example. Like they don't even have to move desks when they start full time. So the junior class, or talking to people currently sophomores, should be the biggest talent acquisition push. You don't want to be calling pure current juniors, which on here is seniors. That is the distribution of headcount that you're going for to make this work and to be sustainable and self-fueling and self-driving, or whatever Tesla puns that we want to throw at you. That is not overly intuitive, and I don't know how much I need to try to convince anybody of that, but that is the way it would to optimize this process. Middle heavy distribution. And then in the year 2 of running this program, these juniors over here where my cursor's moving, they will then be the senior class. Hopefully through natural attrition and all that stuff, it's a smaller group. You might not even so during the second year of staffing for summer interns, you might not even have to call current juniors going to be senior. Like you might not have to even call because you already have enough people from the previous class who are coming back. So you just constantly are going after this middle group up here every year. In theory. I didn't get to do it for 3 and 4 years or anything. So I did not see this pan out over the 3rd year. All right. The next unknown is, I didn't have to deal with this one, but you might have to, or your company. And that's the first triangle bullet point. I didn't have to deal with this. We had a very established firm that essentially the payments and payroll and everything for temp staff. But if you don't have that luxury, which you might not, because it might not be high volume enough, then there are all sorts of recruiting firms that can, they'll charge you like 33% fee on top of what you're paying them. But once you get a head count, you need to try to get a deal from these firms So they're not blasting you with 30% fees on top for every intern. You need to say, hey, okay, these are your normal fees. Don't ask if a discount. So whoever's having this conversation, don't ask if. Don't ask if. Ask, how much can you lower your fee if I need 20 people at once? You don't even have to go interview them. I just need you to payroll them. Therefore, your fee needs to be lower. I have volume and I'm doing all the work. You don't even have to hunt for anybody. Therefore, I'm not paying that fee. How much will you lower it? Don't ask. Just tell them just say it that way. And if they won't do it, then just go find another firm that will, because they will. Some firm who knows what they're doing will, or has the ability to, will do it. And most of them actually do have the ability, because why wouldn't you with higher volume, right? And you literally do no legwork. They would do no legwork. And so if I come up with more pitfalls that I experienced because I didn't think of it as I put this together, or you have questions, just put them in the comment section. And if they were over time pile up, it could be 3 or 4 years in the future, it might be 2026, I don't know. If I get enough, then I could remake this video, or make an additional video of, hey, other unknown unknowns or pitfalls to avoid during day one, day one program execution. Then I would follow up with that video. And I might just be able to respond to your question with the idea or the solution that I came up with as I did this. Because if you have a question, there's a strong chance I had to overcome that hurdle as well. And I might have something up my sleeve and I can just answer. So don't hesitate to leave a comment. Have you ever joined a country club before? Wouldn't it be nice if they weren't so expensive? Wouldn't it be nice if you had a place to hang out with other business executives without getting out of your pajamas and being able to share ideas about current staffing problems you're having, bouncing ideas off of each other, in addition to having exclusive content and planned events 2 or 3 times a month, where you can turn on your microphone, share screen, or even turn on your video camera if you so desire? That's what the Discord link down below is for. If you're watching this video within 2 weeks of its upload, it's probably not going to be there yet. But for everybody else, you won't regret checking that out. There will also be a video guide link under that, geared towards those for whom an online community is very unfamiliar. It was for me too. It looked a little scary. I'll walk you through it. It's very simple. Once you see it, I'll show you how to navigate, what to click, where to go, what to do, step by step, so that there's no perceivable barrier to entry. Go check it out. You won't regret it.